Welcome to You're Not Broken, Just Rewiring, a free audiobook podcast by me, Glenn Ostlund. Chapter 6, The Orientation of the Soul, Polarity, and the Path Ahead. Is it just me, or does it feel like there's always a fork in the road? One path pulling toward protection, the other toward presence. And sometimes, you don't even realize you've chosen until something inside whispers, "That wasn't quite me." Before we explore that fork, before we talk about the way your system leans, let's pause and ask something deeper. What do we mean when we say soul? The word shows up in nearly every culture, but its shape? That shifts. In many indigenous traditions, the soul is not singular, but relational, woven from your breath, your dreams, your ancestors, the animals and land you belong to. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, the soul splits into parts: Ka, life force; Ba, personality; Ak, eternal presence, each traveling different planes of existence. In Hinduism, Atman is the divine spark within, distinct from body or mind, yet one with the infinite whole, Brahman. In Christianity, the soul is the moral and spiritual core of a person, your true self in relationship with God, shaped by grace and will. Different forms, different doctrines, but let's move, as always, beyond form and into function. What do all these soul ideas have in common? They remember. They adapt. They exist beneath the surface story. They hold patterns of choice, pain, longing, and becoming. They are layered. They carry precedence. Which is why, for this chapter, we can look at another layered intelligence within us, our DNA. Your DNA is more than static code. It listens. It responds. It shifts expression based on experience, internally and externally. This is the field of epigenetics, and it tells us something radical. Your genes are affected by your attention, your environment, your emotions, your relationships, even your hope. And this field of responsiveness has a name: psychoneuroimmunology. It describes how your thoughts and emotions, your attention, your stress levels, your sense of connection directly influence your nervous system, endocrine function, and immune response. In other words, healing isn't just a spiritual metaphor. It's a biological feedback loop. As Candace Pert, one of the pioneers in this field, described it, our molecules of emotion carry meaning. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin aren't just chemical messengers. They're the physical carriers of our felt experience. They bridge the mind, body, and immune system. And when mind begins to tune more closely to the body, when our thoughts match the input needs of our cells, the body starts producing the chemistry it needs to recover from inflammation and restore balance. That's the biology of integration. That's the soul at work through cells. So, if you have a soul framework that anchors you, hold it close. And if you don't, consider your DNA, an embodied archive, a responsive record, a living memory of who you've been and what you could become. From that place, let's talk about orientation. The system tilts before you do. Every moment, your system is scanning, not for logic, for safety. And based on what it finds, or remembers, it leans. Sometimes it leans towards presence, toward soft eyes, open chest, curiosity, co-regulation. Sometimes it leads toward protection, toward performance, control, withdrawal, freeze. Neither is right or wrong. They're orientations, survival strategies written in sensation. And the more chronic the tilt, the more it starts to feel like identity. But it's not identity, it's direction. It's momentum. And momentum can shift. Your cells have been here before. They've adapted through ice ages and infections, scarcity and threat, regeneration and renewal. For billions of years, life has been learning how to respond, and every one of your cells carries that memory. So when you feel dysregulated, when your mind says, "I'm broken," your body might actually be saying, "I'm healing." The problem is, the mind doesn't always speak the same language. It gets confused by fear. It clings to stories. But your body? It remembers. It knows how to return to balance, if you let it. And if the mind and body are in conflict, if your thoughts reject what your cells are trying to do, something else begins to rise. The soul, the layered memory of thriving. And eventually, something shifts. The noise of overthinking quiets. The inflammation calms. Coherence begins, and balance slowly returns. Polarity as a soul technology. In the raw material, a source of esoteric inspiration we will explore in future chapters, this is framed as the polarity of consciousness, service to self or service to other. These are not moral categories. They are energetic orientations, like yin and yang. Both have function. Both serve. What matters is how they show up in the nervous system. When either becomes chronically overactivated or suppressed, imbalance follows. That's what we're exploring here. Not good versus bad, but coherence versus dysregulation. We'll return to these concepts with more depth in the chapters ahead. But this isn't about morality. It's about gravitational pull. Does your energy contract inward to protect what's yours? Or does it extend outward to meet what's shared? In trauma states, we often pull inward, not because we're selfish, but because our system doesn't yet feel safe enough to reach. This isn't failure, it's wisdom. But as healing happens, as safety grows, our soul begins to reorient. We soften, we listen, we reach again, and slowly we remember. Connection is not a risk, it's our native state. A story of learning. A client, we'll call her Imani, came into therapy with a long list of tools. She meditated, she read the books, she journaled, she did the work. But still, she felt off, anxious in relationships, numb in her body, strangely outside of herself. When we slowed things down, a pattern emerged. Whenever someone got close, really close, she disappeared. Not with drama, but with silence. A friendly smile, a little less eye contact, an unconscious tilt toward absence. This wasn't her personality, it was her protection. As a child, vulnerability had been dangerous. Openness had consequences. Her system learned. Better to vanish than risk being seen. What looked like emotional regulation was actually well-practiced dorsal freeze. What looked like kindness was actually a form of performance-based safety. But when she began to notice, gently, without judgment, that lean began to soften. She stayed in the hug a little longer. She told someone when she felt distant, instead of pretending everything was fine. She let her voice tremble in a hard conversation. Not huge shifts, but real ones. And with each small reorientation, something in her began to unfreeze. Not because she tried harder, but because she leaned differently. So that's what's happening when your body shuts down, whether it's addiction, OCD, anxiety, dissociation, chronic pain, or a cycle of relational avoidance. These aren't failures of character. They're strategies of protection. And when we start to see the signal behind the symptom, we no longer judge the form. We listen for the function. Translation device. Polarity equals relational orientation. If soul polarity feels abstract, try this. How does your body respond in relationship? Do you brace? Do you shrink? Do you over-explain? Do you perform peace? Or do you breathe? Do you stay rooted? Do you remain curious even in discomfort? This isn't about fixing your behavior. It's about noticing your orientation. Where is your system leaning? What memory is it obeying? And is that still the path you want to follow? Every orientation is a story, and every story can evolve. Dragonfly update, the sacred lean. Before the dragonfly flies, she climbs. Before she climbs, she leans. Somewhere inside her, a flicker, a signal says, go toward the surface. She doesn't yet know she has wings. She doesn't even know what sky is. But she feels the orientation shift. She trusts it. That lean becomes a climb. That climb becomes emergence, and then flight. That's how it happens in us too. Before anything changes on the outside, something shifts in direction. A tilt, a breath, a soft yes toward a world you don't yet understand but are already becoming. The spiral so far. In Chapter 1, we named the ache, doing everything right but still feeling wrong. The glitch wasn't a flaw. It was the start of something new. Chapter 2 introduced the painter, the cosmos as artist, and you as the tip of whimsy, capable of choosing something different inside a deterministic brushstroke. Chapter 3 reminded you, you are not fragmented. You are a mind-body-spirit complex. Harmony isn't something to achieve. It's something to remember. In Chapter 4, pain was redefined, not as malfunction, but as message, a signal rising from deep within, asking to be understood, not silenced. Chapter 5 invited you into the wisdom of density. The heaviness you carry isn't a weight to escape. It's the pressure that precedes ignition. And now, Chapter 6 brings it all together in the soul's orientation. How do you lean? Toward protection or connection? Toward contraction or reciprocity? Toward survival or something deeper? The answer is not final, it's fluid, and in noticing your lean, you gain the power to change it. What shapes a soul's lean? If we think of the soul not as a singular spark, but a layered record, then what if your orientation is influenced by its emotional tone? Not just this life, but every experience encoded in your memory, every heartbreak, every act of generosity, every calculated betrayal, every open hand. Just as a musical instrument begins to favor certain resonances based on the way it's been played, the soul may start to favor certain patterns of orientation. In that sense, a soul with lifetime steeped in mutuality, humility, and connection might begin to lean more naturally toward service to other. A soul steeped in manipulation, conquest, or entitlement might find it easier to tilt toward service to self, not as punishment, not as identity, but as momentum. Emotional tone, residue from repeated inner decisions, can reshape the next set of choices. Some traditions have framed this as polarity, but this isn't a battle between good and evil. It's about where energy flows. Let's look closer. Service to other doesn't mean martyrdom. It doesn't mean you never take care of yourself. It's not about being nice or selfless in the superficial sense. It's an orientation that seeks mutual benefit, connection over control, reciprocity over extraction. It's the part of you that finds joy in easing someone else's burden, not because you must, but because you can. Service to self, by contrast, isn't always cruel or overtly selfish. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the urge to control the room, to withhold truth to gain favor, to get more than you give, to engineer power imbalances, sometimes unconsciously, to avoid vulnerability. And again, this is not a binary. We all carry both. Even your body does. Your stomach acid, for example, is pure service to self. It exists to break things down for you, to help you extract nutrients. But the stomach lining? That's service to other. It protects the rest of your body from the acid's intensity. It regulates, mediates, serves the system as a whole. Without acid, you don't digest. Without lining, you don't survive. Every healthy system requires both. So the question is not, which one am I? It's, where am I leaning right now? Are you giving in a way that erases you? That's not service to other. That's a collapsed self seeking worth through sacrifice. Are you protecting yourself in a way that undermines others? That's not strength. It's an armored self avoiding vulnerability. Polarity is not about perfection. It's about awareness. What are you contributing to the field you belong to? Are your interactions shaped by mutuality or manipulation? Are you building bridges or silos? And when imbalance appears, are you creating a dynamic that calls for outside intervention to restore fairness? Or are you consciously, compassionately co-authoring the field? The lean of your soul becomes the rhythm of your life, and noticing that rhythm, that tone, is the beginning of change. The soul's memory is the body's healing. When the mind and body are at odds, when your thoughts race and your body withdraws, something deeper begins to speak. The soul, the memory of coherence, the felt blueprint of what it means to thrive. And that memory is not abstract. It lives in you, in the way your nervous system reshapes itself after safety, in the way your immune system recalibrates after rest, in the way your cells respond to your internal environment, just as they always have. Even the dichotomy of service to self versus service to other can be seen here. Dorsal vagal shutdown, your system's ultimate act of protection, may be a service to self response, but what follows? The body's attempt to restore connection, regulation, reciprocity. That's your biology becoming service to other. And that's what mindfulness, somatic therapy, and evidence-based meditation practices really do. They're not just spiritual techniques. They are biological translations, invitations for the mind to listen, to generate the neurotransmitters the body needs in order to repair, to create the right outputs, calm, curiosity, trust, that match what the body requires in order to turn off inflammation and activate repair. As Candace Pert's work on molecules of emotion reminds us, the signals we call feelings are actually cellular messengers, peptides and hormones that bridge brain and body. They don't just reflect emotional states, they create them. And they teach us this: your body is not passively reacting to life. It's co-authoring your experience. It's constantly adapting, healing, remembering. So, when your system shuts down, when you find yourself in addiction, compulsion, OCD, panic, collapse, avoidance, it's not failure. It's your body's version of a boundary. It's asking for alignment. It's inviting your mind to match your biology's need for rest, repair, realignment. This is what we learn from soul. Not just how to choose, but how to cohere. Not just how to believe, but how to listen. The soul holds the memory of thriving. The body holds the mechanisms of healing. And the mind, when softened, can become the bridge between them. 3 ways this helps answer the original question, why do I still feel wrong when I'm doing everything right? 1. Because the form is right, but the function is misaligned. You've checked the boxes, you show up, breathe deep, eat well, reflect hard, but underneath the ritual is a nervous system still tilted toward performance. Your practices are beautiful, but if they're rooted in a need to prove, perfect, or protect, their emotional tone might still be service to self, not in a malicious way, in a guarded way. Remember Chapter 2? You are the tip of whimsy, the flicker of choice at the edge of every brushstroke. You can meditate from anxiety, you can journal from shame, or you can pause, feel, and reorient the function beneath the form. From defense to honesty, from proving to presence, from perfection to connection, that's where the healing lands. 2. Because your internal systems aren't yet in coherence. In Chapter 3, we learned that you're a mind-body-spirit complex, but often those systems speak different languages. The mind says, "I'm growing," while the body still bracingly whispers, "But are we safe yet?" The spirit longs to reach, but the nervous system crouches. You may be doing all the right things, but from a split system. And when that happens, glitching is inevitable, because harmony doesn't come from cognitive insight alone. It comes from interoceptive alignment, a felt sense of truth. When your thoughts, sensations, and longings begin to synchronize, that's when the ache begins to dissolve. That's when the tone begins to change. 3. Because you're not just navigating your life, you're integrating a lineage. As we explored in Chapter 5, your consciousness is dense. It holds memory, not just yours, but ancestral, cultural, cellular. And here in Chapter 6, we reframe the soul as a responsive field, a layered intelligence shaped by history. What you're feeling may not originate in this moment. The imbalance in your relationships might reflect a soul that has leaned for lifetimes toward overgiving, or one that is used to taking first, then apologizing later. You're not just living, you're realigning generations of orientation, which means confusion, fatigue, and even contradiction are not signs you're broken, they're signs you're evolving. And that evolution takes place, slowly, spirally, in the space between noticing and rechoosing. You're not broken. You're noticing your lean. You're reweaving your tone. You're beginning to shift the rhythm of your soul, not to erase who you've become, but to align with who you are becoming. You're not broken. You're rewiring, always. Moving forward. And now, we're going to go a little deeper into the inspirations behind Part 1, from both a metaphorical and scientific perspective. We'll explore what shaped the mind that wrote these words, the models, metaphors, and memory fields behind the message. We'll look at the artist behind the painter, and the way certain forces, both biological and symbolic, have shaped the worldview that holds this book. You've met the spiral. Next, you'll meet the source of its spin. Let's keep going.